everybody here calls me Ty, or Farmer Ty. We are on the Comer Crops Youth Farm, which is part of the Comer Education Campus. My title is the garden assistant, and you are?
My name is Amon Styles. People here call me Amon. Javante calls me Styles, but he's the only one who does. I'm the urban agriculture instructor up there in GCYC. I teach the Chicagobility program for the summer. And we are currently sitting on Comer Education Campus. This is the Comer Crops Youth Education Farm. Is that the official title?
Comer Crops Youth Farm.
Comer Crops Youth Farm. It was previously known as the Youth Education Garden. We're kind of undergoing some name changes, but it's one of 3 main gardens on campus.
So we are located within Chicago's Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood on the south side of Chicago.
Oh, this is the main farm, I guess. There are 2 other gardens that are on campus. One of them is the Environmental Education Garden. It's over there on the patio area of the youth center. And one of them is the Rooftop Garden. It's upstairs. This is where everything happens. It's where the bees are. It's where most of the crops are grown. It's where most of the main, biggest projects happen. And honestly, it's probably where the most impact happens in the community as well. We are in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood in the South Side. The good thing about being, I guess, in this industry is that for one thing, you can really buff up your resume, but beyond that, you also wear a lot of different hats. One of them is carpentry. A lot of these structures didn't necessarily exist in the way that they do, like even 2 years ago, but the most notable ones, at the very least in the farm that we're standing on right now, is 100% you might have seen it when you walked in, it's the closest tunnel. That's the Cry Tunnel, and the one behind that is the Homestead Tunnel. But even like beyond that structure, the Shaded Tunnel, which was not even complete, like when I used to work here about 3 years ago, now has raised beds on the sides of it, and it serves as our secondary chicken coop. And beyond even that, we have the orchard. And right before that, we also have the apiary where we have our beehives. There's a lot going on here. If you want to take it a little bit more complex in terms of like architecture, the first that was actually ever introduced was not this farm, but it was the Rooftop Garden in 2006, and they kind of expanded from there. It's obviously not right in front of us, but it's impressive to say the least. It's very seamlessly integrated with the building. Irrigation is pretty easy to tend with. There's a water system that goes into various parts of the gardens on campus. It's the main garden that my students would tend to. We do come over and cross over. Our worlds do collide, but not necessarily every single young person is going to be a farmer out of the gate, and it can get pretty grueling over here. You hear?
So over here we have 2. They're basically shipping containers that have holes cut in the side for doors, and a big tarp over them to create a shaded area where we do our wash pack. We've got a couple of sinks, some tables, some mesh tables for clearing out root vegetables on. Also got a little like garage across the street that we have a walk-in built into for refrigeration for our crops. Lots of different growing spaces across here that are not just like raised gardens, but we grow in we have like old whiskey barrels that were donated to us that we grow potatoes in. We've got a lot of earth boxes. Basically anything you can think to grow in, we are growing in. We've also got hydroponics upstairs. They're nutrient flow techniques, so they're like, what's the word when it's growing up? I forgot the word. It doesn't matter. No.
Vertical?
It's vertical growing.
Okay,
yeah.
there you
So
go.
you got vertical growing upstairs, anything like that. Yeah.
Even the farm that we're currently standing on now, it started construction in 2010. It was just a parking lot. It was an abandoned lot. You can still see the remnants of it. It's obviously concrete you walked in on. But further, if you get deep enough in the soil, there is something called mud mat, which was put there basically to add a barrier in between what, I won't say toxic, but not favorable Chicago soil, as opposed to that compost that we layer on top of it so they can actually be planted. That's why when you walk onto the farm, it kind of ramps up a little bit. That's like years and years of us just like dumping more and more biological matter to make sure it can grow.
So this farm actually is mainly staffed by a program known as the Comer Crops Interns. They're a group of 18 to 24-year-olds interested in local agriculture in this urban setting. We also have our Green Teens, which Amon helps with. Going to talk a little bit about Green
Shaping
Teens.
young minds. I can actually talk forever about my young people.
Not forever.
I will not talk forever. Fun fact: I used to be a Comer Crops intern / crew leader about 2 years ago. I worked for an intern as 1 year, and I worked for a crew leader as 1 other year. Favorite job I've ever done, tied with this one. This has been my first year as an instructor, but also my first year teaching the Green Teens that are across the street. They primarily do a lot of projects in the North classroom. It's the main classroom that we visit, as well as the garden room upstairs. That's where you heard about the hydroponic system and a bunch of little like grow bags and other projects like that. just getting them to grips on like the process of like seed to plant to harvest, so on and so forth. But as far as like what we actually do, yeah, no, we do everything. But as far as like who farms here, it is primarily the young people who occupy the center / are connected to the center in some way. And honestly, they'll occasionally partner with Comer Crops. Like I said, our worlds collide quite often. Comer Crops will often work with Green Teams and vice versa, but it's more of a pipeline than anything else. When you are in Green Teams, you are primarily supposed to be taking away lessons, life lessons in particular, through the venue / the vehicle of agriculture. Not every single person who comes here is going to be a farmer, but if you like food, you probably like farming. You just don't know it yet. You should probably have the aptitude to get your hands a little dirty, get nitty and gritty into the dirt with the animals and the critters. And then, you know, if you show a little bit more of your stripes is when you start to kind of move through that pipeline up to Comer Crops. We actually have a very recent Comer Crops convert, not to say it like it's a cult, but at the same time, I remember working with him when he was a Green Teams Pro, and now he's a Comer Crop intern.
So this land is actually owned by the Gary Comer Youth Center, which is part of the Comer Education Campus. Those are sort of our partners. It's part of the main partners are like the Youth Center, which is partnered with the high school, Gary Comer
They're actually
College
merging
Prep.
now.
They are.
Yeah,
Gary Comer College Prep, and then a middle school as well that's part of the campus, as well as a couple of other properties around
There's also
here.
Utmost Youth. Don't forget about that. The after-school program that helps the alumni go into their college careers. But as far as the Youth Center is concerned, period, it is actualization of young people at the end of the day. We talk a lot about innovation. We talk a lot about youth choice, youth voice. We make sure that we're trying to push the envelope in every single aspect of these young people's lives. Agriculture is not something that a lot of people have access to. I understand that some people use it to stay alive. It's a staple of various cultures because it is quite literally the aggregation of food by way of being a steward of the land. But in communities like this, I already talked about how the soil in Chicago, a city that is very polluted in a lot of ways, is not amenable to growing food, and you see communities like this that are not necessarily invested in, so they might exist in a food swamp or even a food desert, God forbid.
Amon's an excellent example of the mission and vision of this farm, which is youth-empowered change and food sovereignty, to gain food sovereignty for like our community and neighborhood. So our markets actually happen here every Tuesdays and Friday from 3 to 6 right at our farmer's lot. The rest of our produce, about a third of it goes to our culinary program with the youth center. They make meals for the community and mainly the youth that attend the center. It also goes to restaurant partners. A third of it gets donated to pantries in the area. So we've got 2 main pantries that we partner with, which is the Carey Temple and Ring of Hope. But 70% overall always stays within our community. The rest goes to like restaurants that we partner with, other urban like farms around, so Urban Canopy, things like that. It's about 18,000 pounds split across the city essentially. The way that this farm started out is the Urban Ag program started as the rooftop garden. When the building was built in 2006, it was built around that rooftop garden. It was always going to be an inherent part of it. It's always supposed to be a mix of, And then in 2010 they started building up this lot. So this used to be an industrial lot, abandoned factory type thing. That all got torn down, the mud cap went down, and they started building this up in 2010, and they started growing here in 2011.
As far as the projects are concerned, like I said, you might have seen some of the structures when you walked in, but quite a few of them didn't really exist in the way that they do now up until this point. For example, the farm started with Zone C, the furthest from the entry level of the fence, and began to expand this way. So you have the three high tunnels, the shaded tunnel, which serves as the chicken coop. You have the high tunnel, which is one of our, not the high tunnel, the homestead tunnel. And then you have the Cry tunnel, which is our other greenhouse. They house tomatoes, they house turmeric, they house ginger. There's a nice little controlled environment for a lot of the plants. The apiary, which is, I didn't get to work on it, I didn't get the privilege of working with the bees, but at the same time, it was a nice little enclosure that was designed specifically to house the expansion of hives. It started with a couple, ended up with 15. Beyond the scope of this farm only, you also have, on the rooftop garden, or not even just the rooftop garden, in the North Classroom, we're working with hydroponic systems. We're working with growing plants in raised beds. The young people that I was working with, this is my shining moment as a teacher, because at 14 and 15, it's hot. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's hot. That's why I'm sweating. That's why you're out here. Like, I'm not like making you work, and I'm not going to be doing them. I'm like, I'm sweating too. Come on, let's get to it. But they made 3 raised beds around the shaded tunnel for the sake of securing more real estate. Despite the fact that mud mat was built upon, like I said, Chicago soil is not always amenable. You'll sometimes see certain certain plant diseases crop up where you're like, I have no idea where this is coming from. Where did this contamination come from? Where is this pest coming from? Why is all this trash on my farm? Anyway, but as far as the projects are concerned beyond even the scope of the North Classroom, right now in the EEG, the Environmental Education Garden, it's also my young people, and not to toot my own horn or anything, but we're making a food forest. Very similarly, Sandra, the lead grower on this farm, is also working in a food forest in the orchard area, trying to organize different levels of canopy with shrubs and trees that fruit. If you haven't picked some cherries, you might want to do that before you go. And over at the EEG, we're doing it with hazelnut trees. The squirrels keep stealing the hazelnuts, but we're gonna like find a way around that at some point so we can actually have access to that. I personally would like it if there were some mulberry trees over there, but that's something that's a little bit harder pressed to get worked out. We have grow bags making potatoes. We have pumpkins growing there. We have tomatoes growing there. We have a little valley-esque area. I say valley, it's very small. It's not a valley, but it's where our lowest part of the canopy is gonna go. I myself and a couple of people are going to start mulching it to make another bed. We're trying to get to a point where it can be understood that if you're going to be growing food, that monoculture isn't necessarily the way. As far as projects are concerned, it should be ecology in mind. I want you to say this because you're the one who knows IPM, but I can talk about my worst enemy in particular when I used to work here, hornworms. I hate them because obviously I'm a tomato shill. So as far as these giant hissing, spitting caterpillars that grow the size of your thumb that can kill a plant or two or three if you just leave them alone, and they poop everywhere. Couldn't stand them. They were the source of my most fun project I ever did with the plants, but that's my pest of choice. I'll actually let you take this away.
So beyond hornworms, we also have issues with aphids, sweet midges. We also have some issues with voles, rats, rabbits, things like that.
Yeah.
The way we manage most of those things are organic insecticides, and we're also very lucky to be right along a railroad track that has a bunch of coyotes on it, and they do a pretty good job of taking care of the majority of like the vole population and things like that. We also have chickens, which are natural predators, believe it or not, and are great at scaring away mice and things like that.
I saw one kill a snake. It was very...
Yeah.
They're little dinosaurs.
And even for like the hornworms, for instance, one of the ways we've gotten to decrease their populations is there are parasitic wasps that will like mummify them and eat their bodies with their eggs. And what we've done is we found ways to like make sure we're leaving those on the plants when we find them like parasitized in order to encourage the growth of those wasps. And with the wasp population going up, we've seen the hornworm population go down.
I killed 89 hornworms in one growing season at one point, and that was like maybe half of the hornworms that were totally killed in that season. And we didn't get all of them, but I began to see hornworm bodies just sagging with the eggs in them. Those wasps, like, I have not seen a hornworm since. They do their job.
If you're coming to the farmers market, we put a lot of emphasis. Amon talked a little bit about how monoculture is not the way. We put a lot of emphasis on biodiversity. So we've got like everything from like tomatoes, greens, we've got herbs, we've got corn, cabbage, cucumbers, eggplant, potatoes, onions. We're growing as much as we can with every possible space we can here. So like, there's a lot more than just like a small selection, and it's really important that like you have that selection for your community.
Yes.
And I think that might be the most important part.
Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like IPM and intercropping, the diversity at the end of the day does remain the most important facet of what we do here. So
we're open Tuesdays and Fridays from 3 to 6. Our market happens right over here. It's usually somewhere between 30 to 70 people that attend. It's pay what you can market. So because we're in a food desert and we're also in a very low income neighborhood, what we're trying to do is just get food to people. It's not necessarily about like, can you afford to pay $3 a pound for tomatoes or anything like that. It's about, we're here to get food into the community. That's our entire goal. It's to help with the local infrastructure and be able to be like, you can find food here. I've given away plenty of just like greens because people are like, I don't have enough money for that. And I'm like, cool, just take it. Like, I want you to have food. I don't, like, we're not here for the profit of it all.
And that in and of itself is also subject to change. During the pandemic, there was not even a charge for the greens and everything we were giving away. It was quite literally a bag of produce, tomatoes, cucumbers, collards, the full gamut of what we grow in a given season, and we would just give it to people.
Yeah.
So at this stage, yes, it's becoming more so about need as opposed to profit.
Yeah. And then, so for our Friday market specifically, we usually also partner with other markets or other like entities. So for instance, this Friday we're gonna have the Community Food Navigators out with us. They are working to connect all of the like growers, eaters, and suppliers in the Chicago area, for instance. So like Fridays are a big like, oh, we'll have people out here, and Tuesdays we're also handing out. We also accept link payment. We accept card, we accept cash. If you have it, we can let you pay with it. We also do link match, which is for every $1 of your link money that you spend, you get $1 back, basically doubling the value of whatever you're paying with. And we also accept senior checks, and we will be handing out senior checks later in the season, which is just seniors can come in, apply for a thing, and they get $50 worth of checks to spend on produce in their community. To find out more about the farm, you can visit us at Comer Crops on Instagram or comercrops.org. We'll take you straight to our website. It'll give you information about volunteer days, information about the market, information about who we are, what we do, everything like that.
Not to mention, if you're a person who resides in the Greater Grand Crossing area, it would behoove you to stop by and see what we got going on here.
Absolutely.
GC Weissey's right there. Stop by the desk, ask for Sangerino. Come on over.
Just pull into the farm lot. Just come see us. Be
Just
like,
kinda walk up.
hi, can I explore the farm? And we'll be like, yes, come on. Motto here is never stop growing, and I think we absolutely emphasize that with everything we do.